Hey folks, welcome to a podcast about Catholic things. This is Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with
Dan, the ambassador of nonsense. Welcome everyone.
And I don't
wow,
know
we're so close. May as well say Merry Christmas.
Huh?
I said we're so close to the holiday, we may as well say Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. For some of us,
2 days from now.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like Christmas is practically canceled for some people.
I know. That is so sad. Well, Easter was practically canceled for everybody.
Yeah. And then
nobody got to participate in the Mass for Easter. And for Christmas, there's a lot of people that are going to have to sit this one out too, so unfortunately.
Okay, here's the thing. Before this COVID happened, it has always been my contention that if you go to Mass throughout the year and don't miss any days, you should have a dispensation for Christmas and Easter.
Oh,
when all those extra people come and mess
because
up
of the
parking
Creasters. Yeah, all the Creasters come and mess everything up.
Yeah.
And it's like it becomes such a hassle. Right.
And it's always been my what I usually do is no matter what church I'm going to throughout the year, I usually go to my local parish for Easter because I think people should be there to welcome in the new Catholics. Actually, for Easter Vigil, which isn't all that crowded. And
which
then
is usually, when they do the new catechumens coming into the church completely.
And then for Christmas, because I can walk there and I don't have to worry about parking.
That's right. Of course, for Christmas, it could be a little bit cold, but, it's just a block away for you, isn't it?
Yeah. But the thing is, I don't know about... Well, first of all, I don't know if we have a dispensation this year or not. We might. And I don't know that how many people are going to fit. Are they going to turn people away or what?
Yeah, I don't know. I know that the Archdiocese of Indianapolis is currently under a dispensation of the obligation to attend Sunday Mass or Holy Day Mass, whatever, until further notice.
Yeah.
Now, what's funny is it's really stupid the way they do that, or even the fact that they do it, because when you go and actually look at it and try to find out anything specific, like, oh, does that just mean we don't have to go to Mass? They start backpedaling. Well, the intention is that you would only not go to Mass if you either have COVID or if you have a particular vulnerability to it, or if you're somebody who is in a in a situation where you have to be extra careful not to get it, like you're in healthcare.
Yeah.
Well, I think that in times of pandemic,
that's pretty much everyone.
All of the conditions. Well, no, it's not that it's everyone. It's that all of the conditions that they list are things that in a time of a pandemic, a real pandemic, like say Spanish flu, probably would have been sort of personal grounds for avoiding Mass anyway, or at least saying, well, I'm going to attend it from outside the church building here.
Yeah,
or
you wouldn't
like
really
that.
need the
the
dispensation.
Exactly. It's like, so then what's the point of the dispensation?
Yeah.
I feel like it's just so muddled that they're doing a lot more harm than good with these kinds of things. They ought to either say specifically, okay, let's remind everybody that if you have COVID, you shouldn't go to Mass anyway. And let's remind everybody, the one thing that I think could be a true dispensation is if you're a medical worker and you have to take extra care not to get it because doing so puts you out of work and then puts you in the position where you're possibly giving it to vulnerable people. That could be like the one thing that actually might be a dispensation that normally wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Under personal.
Well, like right now, my house is under quarantine technically because Bella has it.
That's right.
Well, I know a lot of churches have RSVP things. I can't imagine how that. I mean, you could very easily
with a church.
Huh?
Are you registered? Are you registered with a church that
St.
you would
Martin's.
get it? Okay, so are they doing RSVP?
I looked on their website and it didn't say anything about that. So
Okay.
I guess that they're just going to do regular mass and maybe have what does social distance on? There's standing room only. On
You mean
Christmas
physical
mass.
distance?
Yeah,
I know. I mean, at is St. Martin's still that full on Christmas?
on Christmas they
I mean,
are.
it used to be, and that's a huge church.
Yeah,
That's most churches would fit inside, like I think
aisle.
a lot of the whole building would fit inside of the nave of St. Martin's Church.
yeah. It's a ginormous church, and
I mean, it's not like Basilica big, but like the Basilica in Washington D.C. or anything like that. But it's a
Right.
huge church.
Last year, it was when we first moved here. I walked up to mass, and we stood the whole time, and it was pretty darn crowded. Last year, when
Yeah.
we went before the COVID, it really wasn't that crowded. We actually ended up sitting down.
Oh,
But
okay.
here's the thing: they did the gospel, and instead of doing the gospel, they had kids come up and act the gospel.
Oh my!
Which is bad enough.
my.
But Father
This wasn't
was
the
the
midnight mass, was it?
narrator. This was at the 3
Like the
o'clock
evening-
pre-afternoon mass.
Okay. Yeah.
Father narrated, and he changed the wording of the gospel.
Uh-oh. Not supposed to do that. That's a big no-no.
So
I mean, he's actually not supposed to. There's one time when the liturgically we have players, the parts of the gospel, which is
for the
Palm
Passion.
Sunday. But other than that, it's actually the priest who's supposed to read the gospel, and if he has a deacon do it, he has to bless the deacon first, and he actually has to go bless himself first in front of the tabernacle. He's supposed to do that before he goes and reads the gospel himself. So,
And he's certainly
definitely
not supposed to
just
change the
have
wording.
kids do it. Yeah,
I mean, that's like
no way.
How do you change the? We try to quote get closer to Protestantism by having more Bible time in the Mass. You know, that was from Vatican when they gave us the Novus Ordo. It was supposed to have more. They're supposed to fit the entire Bible into the calendar.
Like 3 years or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
So they, quote, had more Bible time in Mass. As if, I mean, the entire Mass is a Bible reading, for heaven's sakes. But as we move along, we find out that it's priests all over the place are changing the wording of the Bible. And not to mention the that translation that's in the missals anyway.
That they do anyway. Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
For those who want to go to your poor translation, possibly priest changing the word mass, and now you have to RSVP in addition.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to walk up there for mass at the regular time, and if it's full, I think that's going to be it for me. I really hate going to Christmas mass. It's just all these people are there, and it's like, why are you here?
Yeah, and why do you think you can go to Holy Communion
Yeah.
when you only go to Mass twice a year?
Everybody goes to communion. It's like, you people have not been to Mass all year. Why are you in line for communion? And I wish for once a priest would say, hey, if you didn't go to
guys,
Mass last week, do not
Don't
come
come
up here for communion.
That's right. That's right.
And then you see people
Unless-
who are guests, and you know they're not even Catholic, and they're going to communion.
Yeah, they don't even know what's going on.
Oh, we go up here. Oh, what do I put my hand out, and oh well. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's what's going on.
at least when we received Holy Communion at the rail properly, the way we're supposed to, kneeling on our tongue,
Yeah,
it was kind of a deterrent to people who weren't initiated into that.
yeah. If you didn't know what to do, and if
You
if
tended
you
to
were
stay
trying
away.
to play along, then
It was
you would-
obvious.
yeah, it was like, dude, you're not Catholic. Get out of here.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. It was different because more people realized that they had to be in a good state of grace. And so more people stayed in their pews. But now it's like everybody files. And you're even encouraged to get in line for communion, even if you don't receive it.
Yeah, that's one of those recent things they started. I say recent, everything to me in the last 20 years is recent.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Especially, I initially it was billed as, okay, you can come up and receive a blessing from the priest. But now half the time it's not even the priest you're going to, and then these extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion are presuming to bless people as though they can do that.
Yeah. And it brings me to another point, because with this COVID thing is this new thing where they're trying more and more to discourage us from taking communion on the tongue. And it has not been forbidden in Cincinnati, although I have a feeling there are plenty of priests out there who just say, I will not put it on your tongue, and not do it. But on the Archdiocese website, they have strategies for reception of Holy Communion on the tongue. Listen to some of these.
Strategies?
I guess what it should read is strategies to discourage people from receiving Holy Communion on the tongue.
Oh.
Invite those who wish to receive on the tongue to receive only from a specific priest or deacon who is especially adept in ministry in this manner, reducing any cross-contamination. Invite those who wish to receive on the tongue to sit in a designated area so that all are aware and can choose to sit elsewhere.
Golly, let's try to make a colony of lepers out of them.
My gosh. And it's just people who have so much love for the Eucharist that they don't want to put it on their dirty hands. Their unworthy hands, which haven't been blessed and aren't supposed to touch the Eucharist. I don't know.
Well, I'm proud to say at my church, we still use the communion rail, and everybody goes up and kneels and receives on the tongue. If somebody walked up to the rail and held out their hand, there wouldn't be a fuss. They would, Father would go ahead and put it in their hand. But
this is at
for the most part,
at the Tridentine Mass?
No, it's actually they have Tridentine Masses every day there, but we typically go to the Saturday evening Mass, which is a Novus Ordo, because they didn't do the Saturday anticipatory.
It's a Novus Ordo, and they use the communion rail, and the norm is putting it on their tongue?
Everybody receives on the tongue. Yeah.
Oh. I wonder if somebody tried to receive it by the hand in their Tridentine Mass, if that would happen.
That might be that might be, no, you got it. This is how we do it at this Mass. I don't know. But,
you have no idea how tempting it is for me to go back to the Novus Ordo just to receive it by the hand, because I keep having these little mishaps, and it's really embarrassing.
The priest drops the host from your tongue?
Well, the host dropped. I don't know if it was his fault or mine. I really don't know. Mm-hmm. At first, I thought it was just one of those things, but then it almost happened again, and he put it on my tongue, and this time I didn't close my eyes, and as I pulled my tongue into my mouth, it almost dropped off. And to the point where he saw it and kind of started, and but I just barely caught it with my lips to keep it.
Are they big?
No, they're normal hosts. I don't understand. I don't know why it keeps happening.
Maybe put your head back just a tiny bit more.
I do. I did. Everybody was at Grandma's, and they're like, "Okay, how do you do it?" And I showed them how they do it. Yeah, that's how you do it.
Okay, that's how. Okay. I think I kind of remember that discussion. I was there when you were talking about that.
Yeah. So I think maybe either I don't want to open my mouth and have saliva dripping everywhere, so I try to swallow everything before he gets to me. Maybe that's part of the problem. Like, my tongue's too dry and it doesn't stick.
You want a little bit of saliva, yeah.
Or maybe my tongue kind of has a reflex reaction where it won't stay still. I don't know.
twitching tongue syndrome.
Yeah, if I look in the mirror and try to keep my tongue still, I notice it doesn't stay still. I don't.
So, have you ever tried not trying to keep it still, but just letting it relax?
Yeah, but if something
because
touches
there's a difference
it
between
jerks.
trying to hold your hand still and just letting your hand relax. For example,
That's true. Maybe I'll just try to relax. I'll try that.
Oh well,
I don't know. It's frustrating though, but I want to go to the Tridentine Mass, and I understand the thing behind not receiving on the hand. So, but okay.
When you're always almost dropping it.
Yeah, it's just as we get closer to communion, I start getting a panic attack. It's like, all right, I get it. So also, I guess Pope Francis is going to have a tiny little mass with 5 people or something. Was that the plan?
Really? Let me check that.
He's
Is this
not
like
going to
the
have
Vatican
a big public
Christmas
mass. I think they've closed the whole Vatican down practically.
Vatican Christmas Eve Mass. Celebrate Mass early on Christmas Eve to keep Italy's COVID-19 curfew.
Which doesn't make any sense at all. Why do they have to keep anything for Italy?
Right.
They don't keep Italy's financial laws.
Right.
So why let Italy dictate how our religion is
Rome is not the Vatican is not a city of Italy. The Vatican is its own separate state.
Even its own actual nation with their own sovereign laws. But he's going to, I guess, allow Italy to dictate how the church is run, which kind of takes us back to the old Renaissance days when churches were being run by kings and queens.
I guess.
So all this really terrible stuff happening at Christmas. Meanwhile, we're still in until Joe Biden is sworn in and Trump is not commanding the military, then we're still in kind of la la land here. We don't really know what's going to happen yet. But we're still hoping. And again, I can't follow the news because it's one heart attack after another. And I think, maybe there's a shot, and then I see no, there's not a shot. And
yeah, that's
some really terrible things have happened with. First of all, Mitch McConnell. We thought Mitch McConnell, he's our guy because he's getting all these judges in.
Yeah.
So we thought he was on our team, but we found out 2 things. Number one, he folds. Yeah, he folds real easily. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff going on in court, and he's already congratulating Joe Biden, saying that he's going to work with Joe Biden, calling him
and telling other Republicans,
servant.
"Hey, don't rock the boat, guys.
Right.
When it comes time to certify, don't rock the boat. Just go with it." What's that about?
This is terrible. Did Trump had 95% support of the Republican Party, as in Republican voters, like the real people in America.
Right. His approval rating among Republicans, was very, very high.
Does Mitch McConnell think that that's going to translate to the rest of them?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
Idiot if he does. No.
Not even a little bit. And then on top of that, we find out that even with all these great court judges that we got put in, they're not all that great. I mean, they're turning down Trump's case. Yeah. The Supreme Court. Yeah. And we thought we had a conservative Supreme Court, and the fact is we don't.
No. Well, and the part of it is that no judge wants these cases in his court. No judge wants to have, be the guy in charge of the court where all the evidence is laid out, and he has to make a ruling that could determine the course one way or the other of an election.
See, I heard it.
That's not a responsibility any judge wants.
Yeah, I hear it said that way, but at the same time, I think that if it were the other way around, I think
that
they
a lot
might
of them would go
jump
ahead
on
and
it.
Give it hearing. Yeah, could be.
I don't think they would care. If it wasn't such an important election, then they wouldn't care. But because there was so much illegal activity, it shouldn't matter whether or not they want it in there.
It shouldn't matter.
It's so blatant,
right? Yeah.
But at this point, it is what it is, and I'm starting to be of the mind that, okay, we really need to plan for this now, because with Joe Biden in there, it's, we got scared when Bill Clinton got in.
Yeah.
And we thought it was the end of the country. And I guess in some ways it was. We just didn't see it. But
it could be, we could still be in a slow death that started with Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
That could be a way to look at it. But nonetheless, here's the thing that I keep going back to. We thought that it was the end. In fact, that's when Rush Limbaugh, day one, was America held hostage.
Yeah.
Under Clinton.
Yeah.
So, and yet, let's see, that was what, 92?
90-something.
Yeah, because 88 was Bush Sr. 92 would have been Bush Sr.'s second term, right?
Okay, 93 to 2001. We elected him in
right.
92.
So 92 was, right. So 24 years later, in 2016, Trump got elected.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that wasn't,
And he...
even though we thought it was the end of the country when Clinton got it. So that's what I keep going back to, is that if we can find some way to take away the ability to cheat the way they've been doing, it's not all lost.
Be great. Right. But we can't.
Because in spite of that ability, Trump got elected in 2016.
Yeah, I know. But they saw what they had done wrong in their cheating methods, and they rectified that. And they're very blatant about it.
But it's not just they, as in the liberals, which of course you expect them to cheat.
Yeah,
that's part of their morality. But they, as in the establishment.
Yeah, the Republicans who are in there too.
Trump had never held a political office in his life, and he's suddenly sitting as the president of the United States, and so many ways and people and bureaus and so on and so forth that rely on this smooth operating. You never rock the boat. You don't change things. The bureaucracies really run the country kind of situation. I mean, that reacted violently against Trump and against Trump's presidency. I think that had as much to do with all of the venom during his first 4 years and the Russian collusion hoax and all of that kind of stuff, and taking every single thing he said and trying to find a way to twist it into he's either a racist or a white supremacist or a Nazi or something.
Yeah.
That was not just people who disagreed with his politics doing their political thing. That was something much deeper than that. That was a system, the deep, they call it the deep state, reacting against what it considered to be an invasive virus.
Yeah.
Somebody who didn't go along with it.
The will of the American people, namely.
That's right. Exactly. And that's it. The will of the American people is something that the deep state must keep out of its operations. And by putting Trump in the White House, that they failed to do that.
Yeah. Well, but what's so different about 1992 and 2020 is in 1992, the left, they were still communists, but they hid it.
Yeah.
They didn't let people know they were communists. And they had all the same plans, they just disguised them as other things.
Yeah, they would laugh if you're a communist. Oh, I'm not a communist. Yeah. You don't have any,
In 2020,
what, do you think everybody's a communist everywhere you look? Stuff like that.
They're pretty much out in the open. Black Lives Matter.
I'm a communist.
Have it on their website.
Was it? Black Lives Matter, communist. Antifa in favor of communist. Who? What was it? It was either Cuomo or De Blasio. I forget if it was the governor of the state or the mayor of the city, but didn't he say on some news interview or something, let's be clear, our goal is to redistribute wealth?
Yeah, I think that was de Blasio. Yeah. It was,
the mayor.
And I tell you what, they're not going to have that much wealth to distribute because
not New York City. Everybody's leaving.
New York is dying, and California's dying.
Yep.
And then on top of anyway, they're upfront about what they want to do, and when we compare '93, if we went back to '93 and said, okay, if they tried to say, look, we've got a virus, so we're going to shut down all the churches, we wouldn't have stood for that back then.
Yeah, people.
I don't care what kind of pretense you had, we would not have stopped going to mass.
Yeah,
St. Martin's was full in '93,
and would have stayed full.
Yeah. Now it was barely empty before the virus, and since the virus, I don't know who's going to mass. I haven't been there because I started going to the Tridentine and haven't looked back. But the very thought of shutting down our churches wasn't on the table ever, and now it is, and it's pretty much accepted. Nobody's even fighting it, especially the bishops. So it is a lot different now than it was in 93, and I think it's a lot more dangerous now. So when I think about what's coming if Biden gets in,
there's an acceleration of their program,
and all the things that I used to think, all the things we used to kind of plan in '93, I think now really need to happen. For example, creating a dark web presence and network, where we can communicate with each other under the radar. Mm-hmm. I think that needs to happen, and it's something that I'm working with Buddy on that now, or I'm going to work with him on it because I know he's been in the dark web a little bit. So I'm trying to figure out maybe a program that can be installed like Tor and then used for just that purpose.
Danny has already made progress in installing and running programs and protocols for trusted network. That basically off of the main network, only trusted people can be invited in and added, and so on and so forth. Fully encrypted and so forth. So I mean, Buddy could.
Yeah.
In fact, maybe Buddy and Danny have talked about it. That could be that they're already talking. So,
but I hope to have within 6 months something people can actually download and share with each other and say, look, this will hook you up to this network, and this is something that cannot be monitored. I don't know exactly how that'll work, but that's what I'm working on right now.
Okay.
And then setting up a way for people to buy and sell things on that, which sounds pretty...
Oh, right.
I mean, it already exists. You can go buy and sell drugs, but the purpose here is to make something that we could trust, and not have to worry about getting killed or shortchanged or run into child pornographers or whatever.
Right.
Because as I started to climb into this dark web, that's the first thing I saw is everybody has child pornography they want to give me. It's terrible. It's so bad.
Worse than, oh man,
it's worse than I ever imagined.
That's something that I think about. It's like, all those children that go missing, and it's like, that's supporting an industry.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's people that go and it's not it's not just the pornography. They actually go and pay to have sex with children and stuff like that. And I always think some like super rich guy ought to hire a secret team of mercenaries to just randomly take one of the take a customer of those places out, as they're going into the place, like somehow that it happens publicly, like they're just shot dead in the street on their way into the place. If that happened enough times, it would create kind of a fear, and people would say, "Oh, wait a minute, I don't." But I think I'm not even sure that would make a dent, because of the pornography and the technical quality with which pornography can be distributed and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, but it's kind of, you can look at that situation and see what kind of state the entire world is in right now, and this irony, built up over the last 30 years, and we really slept as it built up.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
we were all
the
thinking,
irony is this. Every government attempt to deal with the problem wants to do it instead of going after the problem, which is pornography and child sex trafficking and so forth, by shutting down pornography and strengthening borders and the kinds of things that can make a difference. Instead, they want to go after the technologies that are used to hide and support these kinds of things. Which, here's the irony, we actually need those technologies to be there because we need to use them to hide ourselves and our own non-pornography, our own legitimate markets and interactions and communications and so forth from a hostile government. Yeah.
I wonder if that concept can somehow be used to actually put a dent in it. I'm thinking, I wonder if Christians decide we're going to take over the dark web because we need it. And then because there's so many of us using it, find the people who shouldn't be using it. And I don't know if turn them in even means anything anymore, because I'm starting to believe that the government is part of it.
Yeah, that's getting more and more scary too.
At least powerful people in the government are part of it. We know that's true.
Right. Yeah, it's not part of it on the books, but it's like, well, nothing real is going to happen.
So,
but yeah, if there's the thing about the web, it's the thing to understand about both the web, the normal web, and the dark web, more so for the dark web even than the normal web, is this most places that you would compare it to, you think in terms of marketplace and hangouts and stuff like that. So your metaphor for that is flea markets, bars, other places where people talk, sell, and so on and so forth. The thing about the web, both dark and normal, is that it's not space limited. I don't just mean that it's not geographically locked. What I mean is that it's as if you had those places, except the world was infinitely large, so that any time that there was a new place that you wanted to set up for a new thing that you want to do, and then tell people, hey, go there it is, you just do it. You don't have to take a space that already exists and change it from this kind of thing to that kind of thing like you have to do in the real physical world.
Yeah, you're right.
Cyberspace is infinitely large in that sense. And so that's what kind of makes me think that, the sense of occupying, so to speak, the dark web as Christians, probably not a real concept because of how infinite the whole cyberspace is.
Yeah. Speaking
and I don't think people appreciate that.
You don't think?
I think there's a lot of. I think those lawmakers who think, oh, okay, we need to, we'll just put some rules about, who can do encryption and that kind of stuff. I don't think they appreciate what is really. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Speaking of networks and internet, Pope Francis has signed a deal with Netflix.
Oh no. Gay druggy Jesus Netflix. The 11. Let's all watch 11-year-old girls dance sexually. Netflix.
Yeah, that Netflix. He's I guess they're doing a documentary based on his book, Sharing the Wisdom of Time. And they're going to have little things about old people, and I don't I don't really understand what it's going to be about. I just know that he signed a deal with Netflix, which to me that's really bad because Catholics should be boycotting Netflix.
Yeah,
and it's not like Netflix had something going like Cuties or whatever that show was, and then a bunch of Catholics stopped using them, and then they left it up, but they never talked about it again, and they kind of backed off on their evil stuff. Their evil stuff continued and got worse over the past year or two. So it's disheartening that we have a pope who's cooperating in that now.
Yeah.
And it's...
the thing is...
come as no surprise, but...
It shouldn't. It makes as much sense as selling out the real Catholics in China made.
Yeah.
Which he did there, too. I mean, it's like, if there is some evil to corrupt the church and disarm and put in danger the souls of the faithful in this world, it seems like Pope Francis is determined to do it, to find a way to do it.
Yeah, and to...
I don't get it.
And to dress it up in language that... I don't even know how to describe the language. Like, if you read it, it's one of those... You know how, like, when people get really high and they start philosophizing and they say things that sound real deep, but really is just utter nonsense?
Well, I have to admit a certain paucity of experience regarding stoned philosophers. So I'll take your word for it.
But you listen to people who get stoned and they say, they just say things that... we have a cousin who used to say things that sounded as if he's really thought this out and it's really deep. But then if you really look at what he's actually saying, it's like, well, it's just nonsense. Stupid. That's dumb.
Yeah.
And it sounds deep in the language, but the substance of it is either shallow or just outright nonsense.
Is that what the Pope's new book is?
Most of it, yeah. But I'm
a lot of the
thinking
stuff
about
he says
almost
is
everything
that way.
the Pope says.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff he says is that way.
So he takes these really terrible ideas and he dresses them up that way so that he sounds holy. And it's... I'm getting to the point where I'm not even going to call it disguised as holy. It's just evil.
It's just
a lot
nonsense,
of it.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it's nonsense, some of it's outright evil. When we talk about things like the plurality of religions,
that was just evil.
Look, God created us and created everything we have and gave us a very specific way to repay him for that and to honor him. And any way other than that is against his will. And if it's against God's will, then it's evil.
Yeah.
I understand ignorance, but you're talking about the Pope. The Pope's not ignorant. He's supposed to know all this stuff.
Right. Exactly.
And so to say that there's some other way we can honor God other than the way he designed, well, that's bad. And I've got a couple of the quotes from his book, and I think most of it goes back to this Council for Inclusive Capitalism that you brought it up like 2 weeks ago, I think, and we haven't touched on it since then. But it sounds like it's a lot worse than what we originally thought. We thought it was really bad from the beginning, but it sounds like maybe it's a basis for this, quote, great reset that people are talking about more and more.
Kind of lining things up so that when everything crashes, we're gonna rebuild it better or something like that. Build back better is the phrase I keep seeing.
Build back. You know what that reminds me of is I guess it kind of started. This language started around the 60s and 70s, where the system is going to fail and there's going to be a bunch of chaos, and people like the KKK and other bad people, bad actors, had these plans where we're going to take over once that happens. And they would stockpile guns and food and stuff like that. And their plan was, well, then we'll set everything right then, because the system's going to fail so bad because they're letting black people run it and things like that. It was just stupid
stuff, right?
It was a bunch of bad people thinking that they'll have a second chance once everything else fails, and then they would do things to try to make that fail. But they were never really organized or powerful enough to actually do it. So we kind of don't remember them anymore. But if you watch old sitcoms from the 60s and 70s, you can kind of see it talked about a little bit. And this kind of reminds me of that. The way everybody's wanting to rebuild everything in inclusive capitalism, but everything else has to fail first. Then we can rebuild.
You've got power players doing that, not just social outcasts like the KKK.
Yeah.
I mean, the KKK were a harmless bunch of barnyard hooligans compared to what's going on.
Yeah, it's a little bit more serious right now because they are actually causing great harm to the economy on purpose.
Yeah.
They're shutting businesses down. And we are going to have to rebuild. The question is, can we rebuild in a way that will not give them complete total power? And I don't know if that's
don't want
possible.
the inclusive capitalism rebuild.
Yeah. I don't know, some of the quotes from his book, we cannot wait any longer to deal with the structural causes of poverty in order to heal our society from an illness that can only lead to new crisis.
This Pope is not a believer in Jesus Christ as the Savior of mankind. This Pope is a believer in a purely materialistic gospel.
Yeah.
These are not the words of somebody who believes in the kingship of Christ.
Jesus kind of talked about the poor. So apparently, even 2,000 years ago, poverty was a problem.
Yeah.
It's always been a problem. Why can't we wait? What's so urgent that we now have to deal with it? But we
can't wait to. We've got to work on saving souls because so much of the world is falling away.
Yeah.
Where's the talk about that urgency? The urgency for the work that has eternal fruits.
Right. I mean, each person lives only so long, and you have that long to convince them to turn to Jesus Christ. You got 70 years to convince each person out there that, hey, you need to come to the church. You need to turn to Jesus Christ. You need to give him your life. Once that 70 years ends, that's it. You don't have any more time. That person could be in hell for all eternity.
And if he's in hell,
that seems more important.
He is not going to take consolation. There's not one bit of consolation that he's going to take while he's in hell from whatever it is you think you provided him instead of salvation. From whether he could eat good and have a fat belly, or whether he could sit at home and receive money without working. Whatever it is you think you're giving him, that is not going to be any consolation to him in hell.
Yeah, that fraternity isn't going to amount to a hill of beans. That's the real crisis. And if you as far as structural causes of poverty, we've already figured that out. I mean, that's what capitalism was. The only time
the free market addresses that.
The only time it really created new crises that wouldn't be able to kind of work themselves out is when the government got involved and held up one company over another company.
That's true.
And when they talk about he mentions how some people made billions of dollars while others were excluded. That only happened when the governments got involved with regulations and ways to help one company over another company. That's when that happened.
And, I want to push back even on the concept that there's a problem there. If somebody makes billions and somebody else is, let's say, excluded from making billions, that doesn't mean that those who did not make billions, that those who were excluded, were somehow treated unjustly by the universe. It doesn't mean that there's an unjust situation. For somebody to make billions, they have to create wealth. Nobody in this world, and actually nobody probably since Jesus' time, maybe not even in Jesus' time, nobody makes billions by simply accumulating the billions of dollars that are already out there to himself somehow. Nobody. It doesn't work that way. If you're making billions, it's because you're creating things. You're creating wealth and adding to the total wealth of the world, and your share of that wealth that you're creating amounts to billions. But the rest of that wealth that you're creating, I mean, that's your little bit off the tip of the iceberg. The rest of the wealth you created is out there in the world doing something.
Okay. Well, what about if you...
That's how it works.
If you get billions from tax money...
Unless you're a government.
Yeah.
Or being subsidized by the government. Then that's where that doesn't apply anymore.
Yeah. Well, Jesus talked about it and said, you're always going to have the poor. I don't know if I guess we never look at that and say that it's a prophecy, but I think it's a simple statement of truth, and he's saying it's unreasonable to think that you're going to solve this problem.
Yeah, I mean, I know that the you know what? Actually, that it kind of speaks almost directly against some of the stuff the Pope's doing now. Because remember, the scenario that he said that was when who was it? Was it Mary
Judas.
Magdalene or whoever came in and poured the oil over his feet and washed his feet with her tears and dried with her hair, and then the house he was staying in, the owner of the house was indignant and said that oil could have been sold and the money given to the poor. And that's when Jesus said, you're always going to have the poor, but she did this for me. Well, here we are today, and we're shutting down churches while the Pope is engaged in great reset programs for inclusive capitalism to disenfranchise people of their liberty, which is required for the development of virtue, and instead address the structural causes of poverty. It's the same thing as the woman with her bottle of oil.
Yeah.
Are you going to give what you have, give your life, or give your energies to Christ and to building the kingdom of God, or are you going to imagine that while the kingdom of God is there waiting for your service, it's better instead to, turn to the poor or whatever? Yes, we have to feed the poor. We do that as part of building the kingdom of God. We don't do it instead of, which is what the Pope is doing here.
Yeah, it's poverty is an outlet for charity.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's almost a necessary thing. And if there were no poor, then who do we give money to? Who do we help? But he's right. There is always going to be poor, and inclusive capitalism is not going to solve the problem of poverty. Poverty's still going to be there. It's just that when
it's just going to undermine the church.
When you see poor people, you're going to think, well, I'm helping them because I'm part of inclusive capitalism, and I don't have to actually just give a good meal or some money to this bum standing in front of me.
Right. This whole structural approach is just a great big way to tell people it's okay to ignore the poor in the particular because we're working on structures instead.
Yeah. And let me tell you, when you're poor, you don't really care how structural it is. You just want food or heat or a home, I mean, It doesn't matter why you're poor sometimes, except in the case of America a lot of times, because most of the time, if you're poor, there's something you can at least begin to do about it. You can fight back against poverty in America. You don't always win, but you can fight.
Yeah.
If you take that away, I don't see how that helps anything, because now you don't have a defense. If I can't go start a business and use the money that I make to sustain myself, then how does that solve anything? Without capitalism,
Yeah, I mean it's the even the state welfare relies on a healthy capitalist economy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Another
without
quote
that,
from him.
You go bankrupt like Russia.
Yeah.
In the
He
Soviet
says,
Union.
if I repeated some passages from the homilies of the church fathers in the 2nd or 3rd century about how we must treat the poor, some would accuse me of giving a Marxist homily. Well, why don't you try it? Because you've given Marxist homilies.
Yeah, I know.
Why not?
You're
why not
right.
quote some of them 3rd and 2nd century fathers of the church? We'd be all too happy to hear it.
Go ahead and
And don't misquote them.
Mm-hmm. Don't misquote them. Don't quote them out of context. But quote
Because
them.
he's famous for doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, he takes Bible readings and turns them around to I don't know what he's talking about.
Almost to mean the opposite of what they're saying.
Yeah, this concern for the poor is in the gospel. It is within the tradition of the church. Okay, you got me. It is not an invention of communism. Okay, nobody said that concern for the poor was.
Concern for the poor was, no. I mean, Jesus
and it
said,
must not be turned into an ideology, as has sometimes happened before in the course of history. An ideology like inclusive capitalism?
I know. It sounds like you're doing just that.
I mean, you're creating an ideology.
You're promoting a grand ideology to try to reset an entire world economy.
And the thing is, capitalism was not created to answer poverty. I mean, it was a system that came about because they were experimenting, trying to survive as a community. I mean, we take it back to the Mayflower, and
right.
We did a whole show about it.
There was a whole podcast. We talked about that.
Now, I'm sure there are things that predate this, but in America, we started with a commune and eventually found our way to capitalism, and it worked, and it seemed like, okay, and as we fought against England and won our independence, they were trying to create a system, and the system was how the country would run and how to grant people the most freedom that could be granted to them. And that's what came out of it, was capitalism. Was it even a word back then?
No, in fact, I think the word capitalism was actually invented by Marxists in order to give a label to free market economy that they could attack. So they needed a label to attack. And I think it was actually invented by Marx and others like him in order to have a word to hang their attacks on and shoot their attacks at to promote communism. So that's why I like saying free market rather than capitalism.
Okay, yeah. So we had a bunch of people who had won against England and won our independence, and they were setting up laws and deciding how things were going to run, and they wanted to give people liberty and a free market so that people could engage in commerce. It wasn't an answer to poverty. But
it turned out being the greatest answer to poverty we've ever seen in the world.
Yeah. Every single time that I can find throughout history where someone decided they're going to come up with a system to answer poverty, it really had bad
It amplifies
results.
Misery. Yeah. It takes simple poverty and turns it into destitute poverty.
Yeah.
It takes hard times and turns it into absolute misery.
Yeah. An economic system should not be based on the idea of having poor people and taking care of poor people. It just doesn't work. It never has. And every nation that tries that dies.
Ironically, the so-called capitalist, the free market system that we came up with, and that, as we discussed in our Mayflower podcast, which we need to get back to doing some American history podcasts.
Yeah, we do.
But that system, even though it was it was done in response to the problems that grew out of their commune, a small commune, by the way. So I don't know anybody who imagines that big communes are going to work when small communes can't. That system was actually just very close to the basic human rights of Catholic natural law. I mean, life, liberty, and property. That, you have a right to life. You have a right to run your life the way you see is going to be beneficial, and you have a right to acquire, own, keep, and in doing so, make decisions about property, whether it's real property like land or personal property like things.
Yeah, well,
that's what it boiled down to, and that's what modern capitalism boils down to.
Yeah, the thing is, all of this academic discussion doesn't really matter a whole lot because you really got to just look at the very core of what's behind this is people gaining power and controlling other people. And maybe Francis doesn't get this. I don't know. But the people who's dealing with him get it. The people at Bank of America who are trying to create inclusive capitalism, Bill Gates gets it.
Yeah.
Jeff
absolutely.
Bezos gets it.
Mm-hmm.
They know exactly what it's all about. So that leaves you with a pope who's either an idiot or who is just evil.
Yeah.
And I guess it doesn't even matter which one it is.
It really doesn't, because sometimes I think even people like Bill Gates and others who you think, okay, they're not idiots, they have to know what they're doing. I'm not so sure. I think that there comes a point where people's power, Bill Gates, by virtue of having money, is powerful, and others, who whether it's by occupying political offices, bureaucratic offices, or what have you, or the papacy. I think there's a point at which power causes a person to develop a hubris that gives them it's like it reverts them to a sort of childhood naivety about their own capabilities. It's like they suddenly see the world as, hey, wait a minute, instead of recognizing the world for what it is, and all of the messiness and complexities and humanity of the world, they see it as a bunch of their personal, toy blocks. Hey, if we rearrange the blocks, we can make it look pretty, and that's what they're trying to do. And they're so naive and childish in their hubris that they really think they can do that and that it's going to work. I think that's really at a root of a lot of this.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's some genuine evil going on there too. I recently heard a podcast discussing, the very real possibility, for example, that Karl Marx might have been either possessed or, undergoing some demonic obsession.
Yeah.
For parts of his life and some other, very bad world players as well. So I don't want to discount true cooperation with evil at those levels that goes on, but I think there's also a point at which just the mere acquisition of power turns somebody into a sort of childish fool that thinks that they can do things that they simply can't do. It's like a kid who wants to take his blocks and build a bridge, and he starts building a cross, and every time he gets a couple inches out, the bridge collapses, and he can't understand why it doesn't work. It's like that kind of naivety with these people.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So on top of all these other things going on, we've got the vaccine coming out, which I guess I really don't know what to... Okay, when Trump said there was going to be a vaccine, all of the left said,
no way.
I'm not getting it.
Well, they said it wouldn't be available. Oh, you mean once it was like...
Democrats were saying, I will never take a vaccine that Trump developed. As if Trump himself went to the lab.
Now they're talking about requiring it.
Yeah. That's what it makes this hard to really muddle through, is that we started with a bunch of leftists who were saying, no, I would never get this vaccine because it was developed under Trump, as if Trump really actually worked on it.
Oh, yeah, like he's going into the lab and...
But the fact is, whatever was done because of him
moving mountains,
supercharging.
Yeah. I mean, to the extent that it's there, it's an accomplishment of Trump's and almost in spite of everybody else, all the liberals, all the news media, and so forth. And yet, I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't receive it.
Well, I mean, if you've had COVID, I don't see any reason to take it. It won't do anything for you more than what having the virus would do.
No, exactly.
But we have it. It's one of those things. I looked at it the way I look at the chickenpox vaccine. Well, it's a sickness, and I guess 1 out of a billion could die from it. But it's a sickness most of us have had, and it's not that serious. So I'll just let the kids get chickenpox, and that'll be the end of it. But the problem is
they don't get
that, well, some of my kids didn't.
Because chickenpox
Sam got
is
it
one
when
of
he
those
was like
that
15.
It rarely kills children, but it can kill grown-ups.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like a milder fatality distribution of almost mimicking COVID, though. You know, the older you are, the more
I guess if you think about it. Except for that, the older you are, the more likely you are to get COVID instead of chickenpox.
As well. Yeah.
But the fact is that the left has turned this into a political thing for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At one time, it was a vaccine, and it's like you could take it or leave it. I guess you might say, well, if you don't take it, you, quote, don't care about people and you're selfish. But it's been politicized, like, to the point where it's people are talking as if you're not going to be allowed to go to the store if you haven't had the vaccine.
Right.
And anytime happens, then I start to get worried about it. Like, there is something to it now.
Yeah, I mean, there's people talking about, well, we have to have some way, like a visible identifier that somebody has had the vaccine, like a barcode or something. I mean, I don't know. I almost imagine this idiocracy type society with barcodes on our arms or something stupid like that, the way some people are talking.
Yeah, but the thing is, when I look at the vaccine by itself, well, I guess it depends. At the worst, they've said that one part of the vaccine might have been tested on a fetal cell line that came from aborted babies in 1974.
Yeah, from a the morality of the vaccine itself, it's not manufactured with aborted baby cells.
Right.
From what I understand.
So I guess,
and it wasn't developed with. It was that, but they were used in one of the testings or something like that.
You might have a moral argument against it there. But for the most part, it's not like the chicken vaccine was made from fetus cells, if I understand it right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I thought it was. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Or maybe there's two different vaccines. I can't
think
remember.
the MMR one was.
Was it?
The mumps, measles, the mumps, measles, and rubella. One of the three that's in that concoction, I think, was
haven't
actually
paid
developed
attention
with aborted fetal cells.
I haven't paid as much attention as I probably should have on all these things, but I don't have a huge moral argument against the virus itself. I can't find anything in there that says, "Hey, this is evil. Don't do it."
Right.
Now, I did want to talk about a little bit about it because there's so much disinformation about it. First of all, we know it's not nearly as accurate or as helpful as everyone says it is. I mean, we don't even know how helpful it is at this point. But this whole 95% rate is not a real thing. And you can find other podcasts to see how helpful it is. But there's another part of it, and I've heard this from several people who say, no, it's dangerous. It changes your DNA. And I did want to address that because it doesn't change your DNA.
I wouldn't think so. No, we don't have that kind of technology right now.
Yeah, you can't change your DNA. I guess, let me see if I've got this. If I was going to create an analogy here, as far as how it works, tell me if I'm going wrong here. The mRNA is the type of vaccine, and it's relatively new. But if you think of it in terms of a defense system, you would have maybe watchtowers at the edge of a city. And the watchtower looks for enemies, and when they see enemies approaching, they send a messenger to headquarters. And the messenger tells them not just what kind of enemy is coming, but what kind of defense is needed. So we need a group of airplanes to come, or we need some foot soldiers to come and go here and do this. So HQ puts together a battalion of people or whatever and sends it out to do the fighting and meet the enemy. Now, most vaccines, what they would do is introduce weak enemies so that without telling the watchtower. So the watchtower sees this enemy, they think it's full strength, and they send their messenger to get the defenses.
Yeah.
And
in some cases, even dead enemies.
Right. Sometimes the enemy's dead, and I guess in some cases
a contingent, yeah.
There could even be fake enemies. But with the mRNA, we're basically bypassing the watchtower, and we're sending our own messenger to the headquarters, and the headquarters goes ahead and creates the defenses that we call for instead of what our watchtower calls for. That's my understanding.
I'll have to look at it and see if that's a proper analogy, because I know what mRNA is, but I don't know what an mRNA vaccine specifically is. But if
I understand right, we're creating mRNAs.
Yeah, but the only additional point that I would mention is in the typical, and this is in both natural and vaccine-induced immunizations. Once the enemy is seen and the headquarters figures out, receives the information about what kind of defense is needed.
Yeah.
They keep sending that defense out.
Okay. Yeah.
So that if that enemy ever comes in again, it's already ready. The city already has, foot soldiers walking around, or it already has airplanes flying overhead, and it gets destroyed immediately. So
which is why when you get the flu, your body creates a defense for it, and it never stops creating a defense for that specific flu.
Right. That's why once you get chicken pox, you don't get chicken pox anymore.
Right. Unless maybe, I guess there are exceptions when someone has some kind of anomaly, but for the most part, yeah. Okay. So the mRNA vaccines do not change your DNA. They trick the cells into making a specific kind of antibody.
Yeah.
I don't think it's all that big a deal. I think it's pretty neat technology.
Yeah.
Personally, I think it's a neat thing. If it wasn't attached to the COVID vaccine, we'd probably do a podcast about it and marvel at it a little bit.
Right.
Let's see. We got Pope Francis to Netflix, the church RSVPs, the vaccine. Pope Francis and Biden, kind of praising each other.
Oh yeah, they're sort of like lining up to sort of introduce the idea of being best buds or something like that.
Yeah,
kind of like there was a Reagan John Paul II sort of play going on. This is almost like the evil doppelganger of that.
Right. Yeah. Reagan and JP2 were going to
instead of defeating communism, they're going to resurrect it. Yeah. Now Biden and Pope Francis are going to resurrect the very evil empire that
I didn't even think of that.
Reagan and John Paul II defeated.
Wow.
Okay. Here's a thought though.
Bad.
Here's just a crazy, out there, outrageous thought. All right. So most of the three people who listen to our podcast probably know about Fatima and about the command that Our Lady made at Fatima to consecrate Russia to her Immaculate Heart.
Yeah.
And there's people who say, "Oh, it's been done. It was done by way of not referring to Russia," and various other things like that. And it's like every time we thought, okay, this is gonna happen. It's like, well, okay, no, we're not going to name Russia. We can't really do it. We can't consecrate Russia by name to Mary's heart. So they didn't.
Which seems like a really simple thing. It
does. It's what? So they're going to object. What are they going to do? I mean, why would you bother even concerning yourself with it? But the popes were concerned with it, and they've never done it. So here's the thing. So China's already, we already know that this pope is enamored with China and thinks that's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Putin is a hardline communist. He wants to resurrect the old Soviet Union, which was extreme communism. And this pope probably wouldn't be too against that if he could find a way to help support that too.
Right.
So here's a thought. What if the Pope, acting in his capacity as the communist resurrector, making what he considers to be a goodwill gesture, like, hey, I'm giving you my blessing to the Russia, maybe trying to reconstruct a Soviet Union of sorts, consecrates Russia to Mary's Immaculate Heart.
Yeah. Because other than that, I don't see it ever being done.
I know. Yeah. Wouldn't that be so ironic?
And then all of a sudden communism is just
completely collapses. Yeah.
Yeah. In America and in China.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Just a thought. Just something I'm going to put out there.
Yeah. Well, I guess...
we can always hope.
Yeah. I mean, it's a faint hope at this point because...
yes.
I'm surprised he hasn't consecrated China to
yeah, that's right. Let's give China the great blessing of whatever.
Well, I don't have anything else to talk about other than news.
Pretty much everything we talked about was current events, but maybe you do have some specific news things. I've got a few news things once you're done.
Yeah, I do have some news. The cryptocurrency Bitcoin is at its all-time high at... well, see, they're saying $20,440, but I thought I remembered not long ago when they were saying it was like 100,000. But they're saying that's what it is right now. But I don't even know with what they're planning to do and the amount of change that they're planning to enact, the Democrats, if they get in, I don't know if cryptocurrency will even matter.
Well, it could be. That's the currency we have to use to buy and sell things on our darknet.
Yeah, but it has to translate somehow into American dollars.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know a whole lot about it.
Here's why. I mean, we don't need to get into how Bitcoin works, but just think about any currency, whether it's crypto or regular. It doesn't have to translate into American dollars or translate into any other particular kind of currency. It just has to translate into goods and services that people want. In other words,
it just has to have value.
Exactly. If enough
Okay.
people, if enough people are willing to say, "I'll sell that to you for this many bitcoins, and I'll pay you this many bitcoins for that." If enough of that happens, then Bitcoin becomes its own internal currency within that economy. And that's all that's needed. It doesn't have to. Then it's kind of like when you talk about, well, the dollar versus the yen versus the euro versus, whatever. Okay,
Yeah.
Bitcoin's going to have its conversion values relative to other currencies. But in order to be a self-sustaining currency, there just has to be a large enough market of goods and services where people can trade with Bitcoin and then use the Bitcoin they receive to buy other stuff with that same Bitcoin, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Well, that bears some looking into then.
Mm-hmm.
32,000 birds are getting slaughtered in Japan, and 8,000 ducks are getting slaughtered in the UK, in Norfolk.
Is this trying to
this
suppress a new
virus.
version of a Spanish flu, bird flu?
Yeah, H5N8.
That's right. Yeah.
So I guess that's spreading. It's not just in Asia. It's in
Well, let's
UK
hope they're
too.
successful in keeping it from spreading. We don't need another flu epidemic on top of or flu pandemic on top of the.
Yeah. We don't need another
COVID
reason to
one.
panic.
We don't. Yeah, no, we don't need another panic-demic.
Yeah. Okay. New York City Department of Investigation accused the police department of mishandling their response to Black Lives Matter protests in the city of New York.
Accuse the police department. So
Of
what did the police
mishandling-
department do? By standing by and letting them loot places?
Maybe, which they were ordered to do. But are they going to try to accuse them from, beating up Black Lives Matter protesters? Because that didn't happen.
No.
I don't know. I can't see this
that
being
turns out.
a real thing, considering it's the New York City Department of Investigation. So
I mean, New York City was practically. I mean, they're from the top down. I don't know if they're as bad as Seattle, but they're practically
pretty
hey,
close.
Black Lives Matter, come beat us up. We want you to destroy us.
Yeah, I mean, they got away with everything over there. So what mishandled? I don't know. They didn't handle it.
Yeah, they didn't mishandle it. They just didn't handle it at all. But that was per orders, per plan.
So we got Senator Mitch McConnell is announcing that the Congress reached the $900 billion COVID relief package.
And
then I don't think it's been signed yet. I sure hope not.
And I think Trump actually vetoed it.
I heard
I think he actually vetoed it.
I heard that Trump said, "Okay, I veto this. Come back with me and give each American $2,000 instead of $600." And I heard that they came back and did it.
Yeah, but that still has to go through the whole process now of being voted in the houses and stuff like that. So they may be doing that, but the thing is, it's not just. I don't know that it's just a question about the dollar amount that American households get or whatever, but because the big problem with this bill was all the money that it's given to foreign governments for stupid stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, why can't they pass a COVID relief bill that is just, if they're going to do it, which I don't even, to me, COVID relief is force the governors to end the lockdowns and let Americans go back to work. That's COVID relief.
That would be real COVID relief.
But if they're going to give, if they're going to say, oh, okay, we're gonna take all of your money and put your grandkids into debt forever and give you a couple $1,000s, well, okay, do that, but don't also give a bunch of money don't give, 3 times as much money or 6 times as much money to a bunch of foreign countries.
Yeah.
And that's what this bill did. That was a real problem. There's also the fact that the bill itself is like 5,500 pages long.
Yeah, and nobody really
senators
knows what's
got
in
like
it.
6 hours to review it before they were asked to vote on it. So what senator
it's insane.
or congressman in his right mind I mean, it would be completely irresponsible to do that, to vote on
anyone
vote
who
yes
voted for
something
that is very, very irresponsible. It just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
You know,
But
that would
that's
be a
the
great
way
thing
things go.
if one or the other of the houses, it would only take one, if they would introduce and establish and lock down and make it so that a rule of that house is that any legislation has to be read in its entirety on the floor with a quorum of membership present before it can be voted on. That would
You'd see a lot shorter
down.
bills.
You'd see shorter bills. You would see slower legislation. It would take them longer to come up with a bunch of laws that do really stupid things. That would be something that truly benefits the United States.
Yeah.
So, anyway, stupid bill. And the irony is, this bill, I like to say, okay, 900, whatever, what was it, like $900 billion, almost $1 trillion.
Yeah.
And they're giving like $600 to every, I don't know if it's to every household or to every taxpayer. Is it every person or every taxpayer? Because there's a lot of
every
persons.
person, I think.
So like, you know, like if you've got, 6 kids living in your house, all of them
I think
minors, you get 3,600 plus for you. So every person in the United States, and people ran the math and said, okay, $600, 300 million people, or whatever, how many in the United States. And for the price tag of this bill, like the $900 billion or whatever, they could have given everybody, $2,400 or something like that.
Yeah, I heard 3,000.
So the way I'm seeing this is that with this bill, Congress is selling out the American public to the tune of 30 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
That to me is what is going on. I mean, and what's ironic is that both liberals and, because I'm like, probably the one time ever it's going to happen, Cruz and Cortez agree with each other that it's a bad bill. Although I think Cruz,
I didn't know that.
I think Cruz voted against it, and Cortez, even though she said this is bad, we shouldn't be asked to vote on this. We didn't get any time to review it. It's 5,500 pages. Only $600. I mean, all of the right stuff, but then she voted yes for it anyway.
She can't even read 5,000
She's so
pages.
Stupid. I know.
I don't think she could understand any of it if she did, but I guess she has people who will explain it to her. I don't know.
I don't think most of the congressmen could understand it if they read it.
Right.
Even though most of them are attorneys.
Somebody had to write all that crap.
I know. That's what it's... like some CNN story about it referred to it because they were trying to proactively or preemptively criticize Trump for vetoing it, and they referred to it as a carefully crafted bill that was negotiated, from both sides of the aisle. 5,500 pages? That's not carefully crafted.
That's reckless.
That's reckless. That's like garbage stew. That's like just throw everything into the pot and mix it up. That's throw stuff in without even
random
bothering
text.
to see what it is. Yeah, that's like
it's like filling a book with random text because you don't have time to really write anything.
Yeah. Let's just have a money spend and donation random generator that fills it up or something. There was no careful crafting going on.
Yeah. Well, in Oregon, at the state capitol, 300 demonstrators tried to storm the state capitol during a legislative session that was closed to the public. They were warded off by Oregon State Police. They were protesting and calling for the reopening of Oregon.
Wow. Okay.
So I guess it went nowhere in the end. But Proud Boys and
starting to see some
pushback, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. And
of course, we had Saturn and Jupiter lined up just right. They call it the Bethlehem Star.
Yeah, there's a theory out there that's what the Star of Bethlehem was. There's some astronomer wrote his,
That is not what happened, but they call it the Bethlehem Star anyway. But It was pretty neat if you were able to see it. I was not, because I ran out there and it was cloudy and I couldn't see anything.
Cloudy, yeah, all week for me.
So I didn't get to see it, but it would have been neat. But it is neat. So that's all I got.
All right. Well, I got a little bit of Christmas stuff.
Okay.
But before I get to the Christmas stuff, there was a fellow, you might have heard about this. He was like locked in his car for 10 hours. I guess he ran off the road. It must have been in a neighborhood, and I'll say why, but he ran off the road, and then a plow truck, this is up in New York somewhere, plow truck came and plowed a bunch of snow onto his car and completely covered it, and he was unable to get out. He was in the car. He ran off the road in his car and then was covered over with snow by a plow. Up in New York and places like that, what we see as plows here on our streets are puny.
Yeah.
So his car was then covered under like 4 feet of snow by a plow that ran by, and he was unable to get out of it for 10 hours. Eventually, there was a fellow, here it is. I was in, let's see. I'm trying to find out why this police sergeant was even there.
Probably give him a ticket.
I drove off the road.
Not supposed to park there in snow emergencies.
Oh, okay. Here's what it is. He managed to get a 911 call through.
Oh, okay.
After 10 hours, he managed to get a 911 call. The police sergeant that responded was kind of looking around, and he climbed up like a snow hill that looked a little bit different than the others, and it was in front of a house. So it must have kind of been like out on a country road. So he was trying to dig down into the snow to find the mailbox to find out what address the house was. And it happened to be where the car was. He like busted through the window and then eventually got the guy out. But the guy, I mean, he's okay, but he was like 58 years old, and I think a few hours longer, they're saying he would have gone into hypothermia and possibly died. He was suffering from hypothermia, so they also got some frostbite, but he's going to be okay.
Do you remember that little gray Escort you used to drive?
Yes.
So you parked in front of the house, and it was a big snow, and the plows came and plowed, and it kind of cornered you in a little bit. And I thought it would be funny if I pretty much cornered you in all the way. And I went up and down the street.
A bunch of water?
Huh? No.
Oh.
I went up and down the street, piling up snow in a wheelbarrow and bringing it back and dumping it on your car. I mean, I worked almost the whole day at it. And then I just kind of sat in the living room watching you when you went out. So you kind of dug your way to the door handle and then just forced the door open and climbed inside. Started it up and just pulled out. And there's this empty spot where your car used to be, surrounded by snow. I don't even know how you got out, but it took you nothing to get out of that. I was so mad.
Ford Escort. Wow, who would have thought?
I mean, I worked so hard on it. It was like the whole day. This is going to be great. He's never going to get out.
You know, that's kind of like, that could almost be a car commercial.
Yeah, it would be a perfect car commercial.
That kind of reminds me of that Volvo commercial with the. Did you ever see the one with the terrorist?
No.
They show him like strap. I mean, it's one of those commercials you could never run it on real TV, but Volvo went ahead and made this commercial. I guess they have different competing teams coming up with creative content and stuff. So they've got this guy. He's strapping on the vest, and he's got all the bearings and everything, and the C4 explosives and everything. And they show him, and he gets in the car and drives like to this like right in front of this fancy restaurant. It might even been like one of those outdoor
Target.
seated bistros or something like that. But anyway, he parks right in front of this, and then they show him, and the view is inside the car, and they show him, and he's got the switch with the thumb triggering, and just as he's pressing it, the view changes to outside the car, and there's this big flash inside the car, and then nothing. And the car's still just sitting
up.
there.
Yeah. That's good.
It's like, well, that almost makes me want to go buy a Volvo. All right, well,
okay.
Next time, buddy, drive a Ford Escort. They don't even make those anymore, do they? I think the Focus is the replacement.
Nothing like the old ones, anyway. Not like those.
All right. Paris, Mayor of Paris, Mayor Anne Hidalgo, I guess she's a woman, her name is Anne, is mocking France's public service ministry last week after she was fined. This is a twist. I guess France, when they say equal, they take this seriously. She was fined for promoting too many women to senior positions in the city's government.
Wait a minute.
So the mayor was promoting women into senior positions, and France's public service ministry fined her for promoting too many women. So she was mocking them.
How can Francis fine...
France.
Oh, France.
France.
Not
France. Yeah, not Francis. France's. The French
possessive
public
form
ministry.
Of France. Okay.
Yeah. Public ministry, or public service ministry fined the mayor of Paris for promoting too many women. So
Well, that needs to happen in a lot of cases. I mean...
I know it does, but it's still funny just because it's a reversal.
Yeah. It is funny that it finally did happen, but it shows you how stupid all of this affirmative action stuff is, and the fact that this is just racism. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Or sexism.
Sexism,
in
whatever.
This case. Yeah. That's good.
We gotta go back to meritism. All right, now for the Christmas ones, we've got. I guess this is just a new level of silly. So as an annual thing, they have these elephants in this Thai town in Thailand.
Okay.
And so they have Santa Claus coming in on these elephants for Christmas. And they're all, real decorated and everything. So pretty cool. This year, the elephants come in and they, in their trunks, they hold these baskets and they're giving out masks.
Really?
Normally, they give out candy and fun stuff. They're giving out masks.
Christmas masks. That's nice. Great. That's so
stupid. Yeah.
So dumb.
A little bit closer to home. And this is my last one. So there's a guy in California who likes to fly around in they call it a powered parachute. It almost looks like, you remember the gyrocopter that Dad was trying to build?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he ever explain to you how that was supposed to work?
I've actually seen a gyrocopter.
Oh, okay. So you know how it works. So you've got the thrust power, and then that makes the top blade spin, and that gives you your lift. Okay. Well, this guy, it looks like it's the same concept, except instead of having a top blade that spins, he's got like a parachute that fills out, and then by the thrust, the parachute provides lift.
Okay.
You can kind of think of that. So anyway, so he's doing I guess he flies around this town once in a while, and he's this time he's doing it in a Santa Claus outfit, and he chose that trip to get tangled in some power lines. So what you've got is this picture of Santa Claus strapped into this big vehicle with this parachute hanging from a power line pole.
So did he just get hung up, or did something bad happen?
I think he just got hung up. Let's see. It says it's unfortunate. We all need to remember there's still a lot of good out in the world. Didn't take long to rescue the costumed pilot and lower him to safety. So he did get rescued safety. Still full of good cheer. He said next time we'll use his reindeer.
Jeez. On the subject of elephants, did Dan, our brother-in-law, ever tell you about? I guess he had like backstage passes to a circus or something like that. Did he ever tell you about that?
No.
They had elephants.
Okay.
And
good.
I guess it was a male elephant, and the male elephant was excited.
Oh, wow.
In a masculine way.
Are we yeah, tell this in a way that we can keep it on the podcast.
Yeah, sure. So I guess you don't really think about that, but I guess it's pretty big to where if a crowd is watching, it's like, holy cows, and that's all you see.
Oh, okay.
So they had those cattle prods, and they zapped it in that area.
Oh, man.
And then it went down.
That poor elephant.
I know, but it went down. Then it was normal.
Well, it would make...
I guess so. I don't know.
It would make me go down, too.
I guess so. I just never thought of that trick. I never even thought of having to do that, but I guess with an elephant, yeah.
Man. Wow. Those cattle prods, I mean, those are like...
They're strong.
You know, yeah. They're I don't know how they compare with regular tasers, but that's basically what they are.
Yeah. Well, it did the job, apparently. And it's something they must do often, because they knew what to do. Yeah. Oh, he's getting excited. Zap! Oh, okay, now he's fine.
You know,
Let's go.
I could imagine that if you've got a randy elephant and he's, decided that, taking a shine to, I don't know, some female elephant over there, you might have a little bit of trouble controlling him. And you
I
don't
guess,
want that
I mean, something that
crowd.
big and powerful, yeah. I mean, we raised goats, and you saw how violent those bucks got when we took them to be bred.
Oh, man.
You can imagine something 50 times bigger than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're wow. You know that that parachute story? Do you remember the MASH where he had to go rescue some soldiers dressed as Santa Claus?
No, I don't.
Okay,
I probably have seen it, but I don't remember it. I saw a lot of MASH episodes when I was a kid, but I don't remember a lot of them.
Okay, I downloaded the series and I've watched it twice now. Yeah, I'll tell you what, that series is very anti-American. Once I started watching it recently.
Mom was telling us that when we were kids. I mean, when we were in high school, or at least when I was in high school. I mean, she would watch it because it was funny.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it just makes fun of decency and capitalism nonstop, and kind of without doing it puts up communism as if communism was just another way of government, and anyone who's scared of it is silly,
Oh, right.
But anyway, there was one where Hawkeye had dressed as Santa Claus, and then they needed someone, and he flew in on a helicopter down to the front line. That's what it reminded me of.
Okay,
the guy flying around at Santa
Except
Claus.
he didn't quite get to the front line.
No, he got to the power cables.
Well, I hope it doesn't.
At least he didn't get hurt.
No, and I honestly, I mean, it's cool that he's got that experimental aircraft and flies around. I hope it doesn't stop him from doing that.
Or make the city be like, no, you can't do this anymore. We had to rescue your butt.
Yeah, I remember Dad. It could be that the city says, well, there's certain areas you got to keep away from or whatever. But I remember Dad explaining that he wanted to build that gyrocopter because since it's an experimental aircraft, you don't need a license to fly it.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I have his old plans, and me and Dale. We started planning on finishing it. We had this V8.
You brought those in from
Volkswagen.
the garage, because he had those plans out in the garage. But I noticed them in not the garage, the barn. I noticed them in the basement when I was there last time.
Well, we started looking into it, and we got together a Volkswagen engine that we were going to rebuild and use it. But then we had families and things like that.
So, do you know what happened? Since you were looking at that, you might know that. Do you know what happened to the frame he had in Grandma Ingalls?
I know
and
he
Aunt
had
Berta's garage?
No, I don't. I know he had some silly ideas that I was going to ignore. Like,
Okay.
instead of putting in something he could stand, he would like just stand on his feet.
Oh,
Instead of having wheels or something to make less weight, he would just run with it.
that's a problem because he had a frame in that garage.
Yeah.
And
he had some.
I forget
I
if
can't
it was
remember
built
what
with
it was.
angle iron or tubular steel. Probably angle iron. He did everything with
Yeah.
angle iron.
But there's much lighter steel out there nowadays. That,
Oh yeah. Gosh.
you wouldn't need to reduce weight as much
In
as
fact,
he planned on.
You lighter steel. You might even build it out of aluminum or something. I don't know, but
Yeah.
anyway. So
Okay. I
That's
guess
all
that
I
brings
got.
us to a close.
yeah.
And I guess, I would say to all Catholics out there, start looking into how to hide your religion, because I think we're going to need to soon.
Yeah, that's
And-
true. How to be faithful. I mean, it's easy to just physically easy. If somebody who's
Yeah.
really faithful, it's not easy, but it's physically easy to just stop doing it. But that's not an answer. That's not acceptable. We
Right.
still have to
We got to
we still
try
have
to
to
get
cling
Mass
to
soon.
Jesus, and we have to get to Mass and so on and so forth. So yeah.
And I believe someday, and people listening might think I'm an idiot for even thinking it, but I believe someday we're going to have to find out how to do things like have babies and under the radar so that we don't have forced abortions, or have babies at home because insurance will only pay for one child per family.
Right.
Those are
Right.
the kinds of pressures that are going to come on us, I think, in the next 20 years.
Especially if we keep getting more and more cozy with China. They will export their extremism and their evils to us.
Yeah. Well, think about what we said. And as always,
Circle the beads.
circle the beads, pray the rosary. We need it now more than ever. And we'll see you next week.
But still, Merry Christmas.
And Merry Christmas. And
All right.
happy circumcision.
That's right. Bye, everyone.